My gavel is missing, but we'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock on June 4th. This is the school committee, and it's not printed on our minutes, but we'd like to start doing the Pledge of Allegiance, please. If we all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any citizens' comments or questions? Quiet crowd today. Anybody have correspondence or announcements?
I do. Okay. First, Madam Chair, I actually have a letter from me to you.
Okay.
You can either receive it and read it, or I can read it to you.
You can read it to me.
All right.
Into the mic.
Yes, ma'am. Members of the school committee, it is with great sadness and regret that I am writing this letter to inform you of my resignation from my position as superintendent. I have accepted the position. I guess the whole world knew about it except me, because the newspapers jumped the gun before I even actually signed it. But I did sign it today. I have accepted the position of superintendent of the Lowell Public Schools. My last day in the office will be June 30, hopefully 2015. I plan to use my vacation days to satisfy my 60-day notice. Having said that, obviously my plans are flexible, and I'm happy to adjust in any way that is more convenient to the school committee and for the schools. I'm looking forward to the challenges ahead. I certainly feel great sorrow leaving the wonderful colleagues and great friends I've made here. I'm going to miss that very cheery newspaper articles every morning. And Winchendon is a great place to work for, and I feel very privileged to have led the schools for these past 3 years. I'll certainly miss the wonderful school leaders. I think we have great principals, great directors we worked with, great dedicated teachers, and really hardworking students who deserved every bit of our attention and help. This past year and a half, as you know, has certainly been very challenging, to say the least. Yet I'm very confident that the Winchendon community and Winchendon schools, particularly, have been now set on a new and exciting course, and I look forward to reading about it. The new leadership in town, the new BOS school committee, I think are very dedicated. I know most of them, and certainly very capable. But most important is they are very supportive of the schools and of our students. I'm certain that my successor will have a great time working with them, with all the new leadership. During my last few weeks at Winchendon, I'll be working very closely with the leadership team and the school committee to ensure a smooth transition. If there is anything else I can do to help with now or in the future, I hope you would call on me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good luck in your new position, and I haven't had a chance to work with you in this capacity for very long, but I know thank you for your service to the town and the school district.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, of course. It's been a pleasure working with you these short times. Do we have to vote to accept your resignation?
I don't know.
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah.
So I guess I would move that the school committee accept the resignation of Salaka Fawi as superintendent of schools for the Winchendon School District.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Regretfully, aye.
Thank you.
Now, Madam Chairman, if I can sort of interject before we go on. I don't know how you were planning on proceeding, but I think we should, it's not too late, or too early, I should say, to perhaps solicit interest from those that might like to serve on a committee to choose an interim superintendent. I'd prefer that we don't just throw it out to the audience and, you know, throw a committee together tonight, but see if we might be able to get something done by our meeting, or at our meeting on the 28th.
Oh, I would think
I don't know
we
if that's
would,
pushing it, but
we would probably have to start even sooner. I know people have already started coming forward that they want to be part of the search committee.
okay.
So, but we will put it out there in the public that anybody interested, please contact us.
Can we talk for a minute about different avenues that we can take in terms of getting a replacement in sooner rather than later? My understanding, and I think Dr. Kalfawi could probably help with this, is that we could set up a search committee and try to find someone as an interim, or I think we could also appoint someone as acting or interim in the meantime, as well as set up a search committee for farther down the road. Can we just, and especially so the public hears everything, could we talk about the different options that we have to take?
Well, I know when I was on the committee, the last time I was on the committee, we had an opening. And at that time, when the principal left, we appointed the principal at the high school to act as interim superintendent until a search committee could be put together and carry out the process of hiring a new superintendent. And it seemed to work pretty well at that time.
Yeah, I think it would be beneficial to have someone in place that Dr. Kalfawi, you know, could work with in the interim.
And someone that knows the district.
Right.
Right.
If I may, Madam Chair, the one advice that I would ask you is to work with MASC, because they have years and years and years of experience working with school committees, and they'll be able to support you all the way. And unless you hire them for the search, they don't really charge you for the advice. As you know, you get that advice by virtue of being members, and then they'll be able to address what you're doing.
And they were going to be my first call in the morning, now that we have the go
Who's
signal.
The representative for the area is Mike Gilbert, right?
Yes.
Okay.
In terms of the makeup of the committee, do we want to invite a member of Finance and the Board of Selectmen to participate?
I think that would be great.
Of the,
Yeah, we'll onto
and
the
I
search
think that's
committee.
the kind of advice you will be getting
Right.
from the school committee. You know, try to be as inclusive as possible of various parties.
Because I know I've already heard from a few administrators and a few parents, so then we can just open it a little further. But we probably can't wait till the next meeting.
No.
Okay.
Once
No,
things
that's fine.
start rolling, they're going to have to roll.
So we'll have to schedule.
And
Can we schedule a meeting for next week?
don't you have a Saturday workshop with MASC already
Yes,
scheduled?
on the 13th.
Who's coming to do it?
Dorothy Presser.
Oh, Dorothy and not Michael, okay. Maybe you can talk to Michael and see if he will be willing to come and
Come
talk
in
to you
and
all
add.
at once or something.
Oh,
Or have a conference call with you all or something.
Well, if the three of us are there, we'd have to post it still.
well, it's still posted as a
It's already
workshop
posted.
with
It's
ASC.
already
Yeah.
posted, the workshop. It's part of the workshop, the training. They'll tell you how to, I think it's part of their workshop, how to search for
Right.
superintendents, how to do this.
If they're able to do something before the 13th, I could certainly call in if I'm not able to physically attend. I know that's not that far away, but time is of the essence.
Right,
Sooner the
right.
better.
Yep.
Especially if the physical last day, I know you're flexible, but if the physical last day, which we should attempt to respect if we could, is the 30th.
Yeah, I'll make the call in the morning and we'll make things public and rolling.
And should those interested send an email or letter to you, I would assume?
Interested
as chair of
applicants?
the district. What's that?
Interested applicants or
Right.
interested school
Well,
committee?
well, I guess both. Those interested in being on the committee and interested applicants.
Tell us what to do. We'll be very happy to collect mail for you and make sure everybody gets it and things like
Right.
that.
And for anybody that's listening, the address to send that to,
It's 175 Grove Street.
okay, that's,
That central office, school, Winchendon Public Schools, 175 Grove Street, Winchendon 01475.
And that would be to Don Harris?
Care of Don Harris.
Superintendent's office?
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, I have two questions of clarification.
Mhm.
The name of the person, Michael,
Gilbert.
and Mr. Vine mentioned the next meeting on the 28th. The next regular meeting should, I believe, be on the 18th.
It's not the 28th, it's the
Oh,
18th.
that's right, the 18th, I'm sorry.
Okay,
That was last month.
What, would that be too late?
We'll have to see how fast things move.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Any other correspondence or announcements?
Yes, I do too. Again, I had received, as you know, we are in the middle of the search for the Director of Pupil Services / Director of SPED. And we've already publicized the position. We have received several, about 14, possibly 15 today. Not really sure whether the person is going to go through with the application. But we have teachers, we have administrators. We've received a request from CPAC, that's the special education PAC, mostly parents, and they've requested if they could really participate. And I said, yes, I'll bring it up to the school committee. It's not a bad idea. I personally recommended that we get parents involved if we can. And if we do, we will be delaying slightly by 1 week. It's not really a bad deal. And I know we had agreed on the process, and you guys voted on that last time, so if it's okay with you, and it would be nice to allow parents to be part of it. And if it's okay, we will make sure that they get all the material tomorrow.
Have interviews taken place already or anything like that?
No interview yet. We haven't even gone through the stage of selection of semifinalists at all, not yet.
So do we need a motion to formally ask parents to participate?
Yeah, to accept these parents. We've received requests from 2 parents.
Mhm.
They're both members of the PAC group, and they would like to come and join us.
All right. I would move then that the school committee invite 2 parents to participate in the search for a new SPED director.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Yeah, so these are the couple of correspondence we have.
Could you, I'm sorry, if we can stay on that for a second, can
Sure.
you talk about the timeline for
Well,
activities that are going on with
the
that?
timeline that we were trying to achieve, it was to try to get a selection. Initially, we were trying to interview at least 6 next week, Wednesday and Thursday. And now we're just going to delay it to the following week. It's really not so bad. And then hopefully send to the school committee 3 members, three names that you would then have interviews in an open meeting. At that interview, it's your choice. You could do, you could do like Chelmsford did, which is allow the public to comment on the candidates or not. It really is your call. And hopefully then you would make the decision. So at the most, we were hoping to target the first July meeting, because Mrs. Landano is still with us and then for another week or so. It would be nice to get the new person and the departing person together for 1 week.
Right.
Not that she's going too far, but still,
Right.
working together in 1 week in an office will be very helpful. That's the target that we're shooting for. Now, I have to tell you that the field has not been very encouraging. It's a lot of the applicants that we see are not, that they don't have yet their certifications, and that really means it's going to go back to the state, because this is the kind of job that the state will force you that the person has to be certified or get a waiver from the states if they decide that they can give you a waiver. It's the same thing as superintendents. And you'll hear MASC will tell you the same thing. It's really late in the process. Once you start getting to June, it's very hard to hire, administrators. So You will see. We'll let you know, and then you'll make a decision. I think you might, I'm just telling you in advance, we might end up recommending to you that to go in the route of an interim again for SPED.
How many applicants have you had?
We have 14 out of them. I think about a good six of them are all new young teachers who don't even have the certification yet. The new certification guidelines require 500 hours of practicum. So it's really up to the state whether they're going to allow you to have somebody with a waiver and use the first year of their work as their practicum year. So, and we didn't have we have only like really maybe 2 or 3 that are certified many years and a few years behind them of work.
Are any of those internal?
We do have. In order to keep I apologize, but in order to keep the process confidential, because the law's semifinal has to stay confidential, I can't tell you how many are internal.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, do you have any idea what the geographic breakdown is of the applicants? Are there a lot from west of here looking for a step up in pay, perhaps?
They're from everywhere, believe it or not. There's even from California.
Really?
There's California, there's Virginia, there is, I think, Virginia, some state down south. And then there are local ones, you know, from the area. So I think a couple from the west. Well, western part of the country, of the state, I mean.
Right,
yeah.
right. That's what I was thinking,
Yeah. But we didn't, I was hoping for a better response, but we really don't have much of a response. It's a tough job. You're not going to get too many responses to start with, but I was really hoping for a better response, but we didn't get that, you know. As I told you, we've been having, 3 or 4 weeks now? 3 weeks or 4 weeks that we opened, and we kept it open until we closed, so we didn't close it, and we only got 14 applicants. I think a lot of them read the newspapers, and when they read all that nonsense in the newspapers, they just run away. They get scared of coming to work in Winchendon.
Well, I think we've been spoiled to some extent with what Cindy's been able to do here, and I'm wondering, you know, they're big shoes to fill, and I don't know if it's realistic to expect anyone just to step in here and start doing the kind of job that Cindy's done over the past 16
I don't think
or
anybody's
17
looking
years.
at that yet. I think the first thing that we met already twice as a team, and we're not even looking. We're far from looking at that.
Yeah.
We're just far. I think the first thing that we got alarmed is how many of these don't have the certification. And I think what happens is we know how the process is tough with the state, because unless the state gives you a temporary certification or a waiver, that's not a job that would allow you to have somebody without a certification.
Right.
And when you look at young teachers applying, you know, they could be great, but if you know in advance that they're going to need 500 hours of practicum, that's going to be a little tough. But we keep our hope, and we'll tell you which way we go. And I'm just telling you from now, so it won't come to you as a surprise, that don't be surprised if the recommendation of the committee comes back to recommend to go the direction of an interim and then open the search later for a longer term.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you have anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay, we have no students tonight. Do you want to go on to the superintendent report now?
Yeah, actually, most of our reports are what you have requested on the business side. And did you get a response for the transportation or not yet? No. All right, then I do need to inform you before he starts of something that is very important, and that is very serious at the same time. As you know, the transportation, and some of you who have been here, who have attended the town meeting of 2013 would remember what I'm talking about. The transportation of school children is the responsibility of the town, of any town or city. That's the law. and the monies are paid from their account, not from our account. Our role is to process the bills. As they come in, we process the bills, we verify that they're correct, we send them to the town then process them once they're validated by our office to pay the vendors. This last warrant that we sent, the accountant refused to pay them on the account that they no longer have money. And we can't do anything about it. It has nothing to do with us. And, you know, so I want to warn you on that because these are small businesses, as you know. They live day by day with their check. And when they don't get the check, they'll have a very serious hard time paying their drivers. If they should decide to stop driving our special education children, we will be in violation of every IEP, and that would mean something very serious. So I needed to inform you. I do intend to inform the Board of Selectmen because they are the ones who really control that side of the house, and I have every intention to inform them in writing and also on Monday the 8th of that. We did notify DOR on that. They were copied on the email. I'm sure they're going to step in at some point with something. But just so you know, this past warrant where the bills were due to pay the transportation companies,
the one we just signed yesterday.
The one you just signed yesterday, they were pulled out of it.
Do you have a dollar amount?
I don't have the total amount calculated. It's probably between $70,000 and $75,000.
And you're talking just special education?
Correct.
Think so, yeah.
Yeah, the regular transportation has enough funds. It's the special ed transportation that's over budget.
Now, was this also the transportation company that always comes to us in the past saying, you missed my bill, why wasn't I
Yep,
paid?
It's one of them, yep. We have several vendors that are paid under the special ed account.
Might I ask, Mr. Sienowitz is in the audience, could he maybe just let Mr. Barbaro know that this could be an agenda item for Monday the 8th? Give him a heads up in case, thank you. Not putting you on the spot.
That's it.
Obviously, they want their money as soon as possible, but is there a drop-dead date that this needs to be completed by?
I really don't know. I think it's a, we're obligated by law to let you know when the bill is not paid. Mm-hmm. And it's not a school bill, otherwise we would be juggling trying to figure out how to pay it. There's really nothing we can do. As you know, we're not even allowed to pay it, period.
Now, you've said you told the DOR. Did the DOR have a response
The DOR
yet?
was copied in response when we told them.
Have
And
they
the response
responded?
we sent yesterday but I don't think we had received anything yet from them.
I know there's not much time left in the school year, but is it likely that between now and the end of the year that parents of these special education students would find themselves in a predicament in terms of getting their children to school?
That could be as soon as Monday.
Are parents aware of this?
No, not yet. It's just we just learned of it yesterday. Nobody's aware of it.
I'm just wondering if it'd be advisable to let them know now that it, even if it's a slim possibility, that there is a possibility that their transportation could be disrupted.
I'm hoping the Board of Selectmen acts on it, because if that happens, I'll forward all the lawyers' calls to the school committee, because that's a violation of the law.
Right.
You can't not provide transportation to SPED students as dictated by the IEP. I'm hoping that the Board of Selectmen will take action on it on Monday immediately, because it's not something that is even you can entertain.
Okay, if the board for some reason failed to act on Monday, I just don't want these parents to be taken by surprise.
This may be something I should know. and I'm admitting that I don't. What's the criteria for ordering an emergency Board of Selectmen meeting? Could we order or request an emergency meeting to discuss this so we don't end up in a predicament where our children are stuck at home when they should be getting on buses to go to school?
Well, we already have a meeting for Monday.
But if they're trying to go to school on Monday.
Tomorrow is Friday. And,
If I could interject for a second. Generally, the bills that were in and were pulled from the warrant would be paid next Thursday. So there isn't necessarily an expectation at this point of a bill. You know, it would generally be processed and mailed out on Thursday. Obviously, there's one vendor that generally is looking for their payment, or from the town. And it's also likely there's a second warrant in town, and if the vendor is not necessarily looking specifically at cash flow, there are times where if a bill doesn't make the first warrant, it also makes the second. We can make the second warrant. So as of Monday, I don't think there's going to be an immediate issue, but if it doesn't get resolved, there may be an issue before the end of the month.
That helps. Thank you.
Now, she just gave you notice that they weren't be paid and they were pulling them out. She didn't say need to schedule these for a future date or anything like that?
No, the email was just, the transportation line is over budget. Take these bills out of the warrant.
Okay. We will get with the Board of Selectmen on Monday and
hopefully they'll be
Yes.
resolved. Well, that's it.
any more good news?
You're full of it tonight, huh?
The weather is good. The weather is better, so. That's it. Go on.
Okay, I get to follow Mary Sunshine. Good. So what's coming around now is a copy of the expenditure report by DESI Function Code that I provide to the school committee each month. As you can see, currently on our budget of $13 million, we have $231,000 in encumbrances and $2.1 million in available budget. We're currently working through the process of getting any expenses assigned to grants based on transfers, and also looking to reduce any encumbrances that we have. In the last week, we've gone through both the heating and the electrical encumbrances, which are the bigger POs, to make sure that we have something that more accurately reflects the end of the year, so that we can get down to exactly what the district is going to spend through the course of the year. There are, as I look through the open PO report, there's some POs that are old, so over the next week or so, we're going to be going through any POs that aren't expended, pulling those if they're not for anything that legitimately needs to be paid before the end of the year. But I just kind of wanted to make you aware of where we stand, and at this point, we're kind of in closeout mode, close out open POs, transfer any monies that need to go from the LEA to grants or vice versa. There are some negative lines in here which are stipended amounts or substitutes which will be charged to the grants based on the overall grant plan. Through the course of the year, they were charged because of our switch to Harper's. They were basically charged as we go, but now we need to true them up and get them into the grants where they belong. So we're kind of in cleanup mode for the month of June.
Now, this is basically the same report, well, after you clean a few digits, that will come to the Board of Selectmen on Monday?
Yes.
Anybody have any questions? Not yet?
Not right at the moment. I've got some coming up, but not under this.
In the other district-wide admin, sounds like it encompasses everything, but what does that encompass? And I only ask because that one's at 255%, and I'm sure it's probably one that's going to be cleaned up, but it's third down.
Oh. To put my glasses on here.
Look, the one before that. They offset each other, it's just a matter of transfers. The
I'm sorry, can you-
superintendent line,
Those are, yeah,
They
those-
can't hear.
Those are transfers for district-wide administration, some of which have been charged to the local budget, but will ultimately be charged out to grants for their salaries. So you're going to see that, while it won't get entirely eliminated, you'll see a reduction in that.
Thank you.
Most of the biggest overages you see are in either number one, heating, or the other one you're going to see is the tuitions for SPED students. And the heating is what it is. It was a cold winter and it was an expensive winter. The SPED tuitions, a lot of them you're going to see charged out to circuit breaker, or you're going to see them charged out to the 240 grant. So as part of the reconciliation process, those expenses will move outward. We still don't have all the revenues received, so we can only charge as we get revenues.
Are we waiting for those to come in from outside, or do we have those in-house and we're just waiting for them to come into the system?
We have one inside that we're waiting to post into the system, but then other than that, we have outside revenues that we're waiting to come in from the state.
Dr. Kafawi?
yes, sir.
I just wondered if you could explain what the rationale was for last year. I see that there was no money appropriated for substitute teachers, and we've spent $42,000 on substitute teachers thus far this year. I'm just curious as to what the rationale was for doing that.
We actually do have
Yep,
substitutes.
that's one of the lines. I mean, the line, I believe, was reduced from the prior year's budget, but there is some expense for substitute teachers in other lines, and also there's lines that are, some of that money is going to be charged out to grants. Some of those subs are grant funded.
In every school, we have a substitute line. They just need to consolidate. Because like, for instance, if you look at one of the lines, I think it's specifically in the middle school, when you go down at the level of more detail, you'll see that we haven't even touched it because everything was charged to some other line. I guess old habits where before the schools were divided, and they just kept charging to the same account, but the money is there. So before we close up the year, they're going to apportion exactly what goes to middle school, what goes to high school, and also a lot of these as well will be charged, particularly in the subs, are really absorbed by grants, because you had a PD that was funded by grants, and the teachers' subs would have been already planned for and to be paid by the grant, but then they didn't do the process yet, because you can't wait for that. You have to pay the people. So you pay out one account and then you do your transfers.
If you look 3 lines above it, it's DESI function code 2325, substitute teachers. That line has a budget of $101,000, and there's still $37,000 in it. Now, granted, those are 2 different things. One is substitute teachers you call in. One is teachers subbing for other teachers. And most of those, that second one is what's funded by grants. But if need be, we'll make an adjustment to use any excess money out of one line to cover the balance in the other.
This is minor, I'm just curious, it's curiosity. Testing and assessment, it's number 2720. We're only at 44% of our budget. Is Park less expensive than MCAS? Is there?
No, not necessarily. I don't think we spend much on Park anyway. I think it's just that it's another one where a lot of things will settle at the end of the year, because you know, sometimes bills don't come to us until very, very late, and they'll come in even paying them early July, because they allow you to pay them 30 days after it's closed. So particularly when it comes to testing AP tests or any kind of advanced tests like that. So I think I would probably wait until the closing of the year, then you'd really know for sure how much you spend on tests.
Thank you, just curious.
Are there any lines that concern you at this moment?
At this point, my concern is just landing the budget. So as much as possible, keeping expenses down, going through the POs, not spending anything that's superfluous or is not absolutely needed. I mean, this budget is very, very tight. So everything is of a concern to me, but nothing glaring.
Nothing with a
I'm
huge
worried
red
about.
flag on it at this point. Okay.
That's a good question.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a suggestion in the interest of transparency. You know, these reports are good for the school committee to get, but I'd really like to see some extra copies made if we could, because people that are attending the meetings, they hear us talking, but they have no idea what we're talking about in many instances, so.
We always make a check of
I have a few extra copies.
All right. If we could just make it a habit to have them made specifically for the public, that would be great.
Just remember, that's going to come out of the tree on your front yard. Yeah.
Yeah, now that we have the school website up and running, it's a good suggestion.
Well, we're sort of bouncing around here. Okay, you don't have anything more to say on the director search, correct? So
Not
we've
now.
actually covered that.
Yep.
Okay. Do you have any other business office news, or can we move into your contract?
You can move into the contract.
Okay. Now, I haven't even seen your contract, so.
That's good. You have copies?
Oh, I didn't,
Yeah.
I thought copies were provided.
They were provided, no? Lauren didn't send them to you? They did.
No, the only thing I got.
You got a copy, right?
Oh, see, 'cause he goes into the office all the time. Yeah, no, the only thing I got was the Title I. Share.
Yes. I was seeing if I have it right.
Unless I missed an email today or something.
I apologize because I saw it on the agenda and I know Lauren asked for copies, so I just kind of assumed they went out.
No biggie.
Okay. So is this renewable every year?
Yes,
Let's
it's
start
priced
with
for
that.
3 years, so it's a contract with year by year renewable each year.
Okay.
Yeah, really, it's
And July 1st?
right, it's the one-page document, it's pretty much the contract.
The rest is the scope of work.
Correct.
So there's really not much that we could do on this tonight. I mean, I certainly wouldn't recommend taking any action this evening since we're just
Right, it was more like just an
receiving it,
overview,
so.
so we could be prepared, I guess.
But just to remind you, because I think none of you were here when we did it, the contract was negotiated for 3 years fixed price. The prices are all fixed for 3 years, but it is renewable every year. You're not tied up. You're not locked into 3 year. Every year, you have the option of saying, let's go one more year or not.
And I'm sure it's in here and I'm trying to read it quickly, but when do we need to tell you that we're going into year 2 by?
Well, looking at the contract, I would say it would be good to know before the contract expires or when the contract expires, which would be June 30th of each year.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any concerns that you have with this contract that you would want to bring forward for renegotiation?
My one advice is that if and when this district is ready to go back to the traditional model of business, you're going to face the same thing in the search, whether it's a superintendent, business manager, or SPED director. These are not the kind of jobs you're going to get somebody to have a good number of people applying for in June, you know, or something like that. You really need to get like we did the first time. We, you know, you get as many stakeholders in the community involved. I think if you're going to decide to go to a business manager model, you have to consider business manager, and also you have to look at the payroll, and you have to look at the assistant business manager. And I advise you to get all the parties involved. Get people from finance committee, get people from town, get the town accountant, get people involved to work, and be involved in the search committee, and not be just the school committee or just the administration that do that, because this is the kind of job that this person is going to work with all parties concerned. And even then, as you know, you could get a good candidate, or it's hard. It's a very tough job to get. It's very competitive out there for business.
Now, are you looking for basically this contract as it's written to be renewed, or do we anticipate TMS being asked to pick up any additional responsibilities?
Well, that's a good question for a good attorney. I think we have a clause in there that gives you that option of assigning other tasks. That's what I was explaining last time to one of our citizens, is that we had when Mrs. Werspecki left us to go to Shrewsbury, the assistant business manager, she was also doing the AP, the accounts payable, and the grants and everything. When she left us, we had no choice. We picked up somebody, which the law allows you to do in case of emergency. You don't have to bid or anything outside because it is an emergency. We picked up account temps. We just called account temps and said, send us somebody with this kind of qualifications. Then the account temps person left because she found a permanent job somewhere. So our choice was, do we call account temps again, or do we call anybody like account temps? Well, TMS happens to be like account temps too in some ways, because they'll provide you with whatever expertise and that you ask them, whatever qualifications. And so we had asked them, and we said, can you provide us with somebody who can do these things? Somebody who's certified, somebody who knows how to work with munis and so forth. And they did, but we limited it to actually lower than the clause that they have in there if you look at the time. We limited it to whatever we had left in the budget for that position, because that position was budgeted for a certain amount. Some of it had already been spent for Mrs. Werspecki when she was with us before she left, and then, we just limited them within that. So you can do those things up to a certain point. If you start changing a lot, then I think an attorney might say that you might have to go back to bidding if you change it substantially, because this was a result of an RFP, and we collected, several proposals of several, and they were all blind proposals, and we picked the best one at a time.
Okay, I mean, I wasn't really thinking of the school committee asking them to pick up any additional responsibilities. I just wonder whether any had been discussed between you and TMS that you thought that they should pick up, or that TMS has suggested.
The only one we ever talked about, and we actually did, was picking up whatever was done by account temps. That's all. And they picked it up. They have sent us more people, because particularly in this last year and a half, with all the the reports and everything that we had to do, and the mess that we had with Harper. For instance, the person who fixed that whole thing about Harper Munis interaction is Erin. We don't really pay for her, and they felt compelled they had to fix it, because otherwise they can't do their job. So it's not uncommon that it did happen, where they had brought in a couple, one day here, one day there, some of their experts, but it was all done within the context of their contract, because they had to do it, because otherwise they couldn't do their job. Right now, the permanent people that we have are way what was demanded from them in the contract. If you read the contract carefully, you'll see that the man hours that they put in are way exceeds what we had, the minimum required as per their contract. We have a full-time in Mark. He's constantly full-time now with us. We have Emily, who's full-time in payroll with us. And we also have Gail, who's full-time in AP. And that's the contract that comes under the old account temp. And then they have Aaron, who's probably, I'd say, a good half-time in there. So when you look at it, it's pretty, it's a lot of man hours they're giving us. And then weekly or bi-weekly, they'll have David or Andy come in and spend the whole day with the team and look at things. So I think at this point, I think everybody stopped looking at the hours, really. They're handling the finances, and they know we don't have money, so they've never tried to bill us for additional hours. They know it won't be paid because we just don't have the money to do it. We would deny the hours before we pay that. So hopefully at some point things will be cleaner and better with Harper and Munis, and we won't have to put that much work into them.
So the payroll with the Harpers is included in the original contract price?
Right.
Or is that one of the additional services?
No, right now, the contract that's here, the 3-year renewable, includes myself, Erin, and accounts payable, Emily. And then there's an addendum for the accounts payable process. Did I say accounts payable? Payroll in Emily. And the accounts payable process is the addendum that's at $30 an hour, which I think is the same rate that account temps was charging at the time. So the general contract included everything, but then, the district had asked that there be an accounts payable person as well, so that was an addendum to the contract. So between the two, that covers basically everything in the business office.
Now, could we ask that the accounts payable be added into the contract as a covered position?
I really don't know. I know that we have a clause that allows you to do that. I'll be happy to run it by the attorney tomorrow and ask them if that can be.
So it's no, so it can be written in and not always as an extra bill.
Yeah, we can ask.
So we can double check.
Yeah, we can ask.
'Cause especially if the town's going to be changing software, you may be putting in more hours again.
Well, that would be covered under the contract price, so.
Just out of curiosity, if you could find out.
Sure.
So should we plan on voting on this by the 18th meeting, probably, in time for the June 30th deadline? Okay.
Yes, most likely.
Put it on the agenda.
Anybody have any questions on this for right now?
Not right now.
The Chartwell.
And I did make copies of.
We don't need 5, do we? We need 4, 1 for Barry. Here you go, I have one.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's the original contract that I handed out. And then, so did you get the amended renewal contract? Because that, again, I thought since it was gathered earlier that it was sent to school committee.
That was
Sounds like no.
probably before their time, before them.
Yeah.
Well, I think the most important part of it that you need to explain is the state.
Yeah, I mean, really, I looked at it, the amendment is, which I can make copies of if I can run out and do it. I read it compared to the original contract. Really, the only differences that I saw was the fact that they're looking to amend all the dates to be current to this year, because it is, again, it's kind of like the TMS contract, it's renewable each year. So it's amending the dates, and then so it changes the term, and then 10.6 has a lot of items that relate to the date. The only thing that I saw that was different was in 10.6, the old contract says that if the annual operating statement shows a positive gain of less than $281, Chartwells will be responsible for the difference. This one says if it shows a loss. I have no idea why $281 was the magic amount in the last contract, but this has changed to basically break even. So what you have in front of you is the entire original contract. The amendment itself, which is the renewable portion that they're looking for, basically just changes the dates in that $281. It changes the term, which is 2.1 of the contract, and then section 10.6, which has dates in it.
The one that requires again state approval.
Right, so what needs to happen ultimately is, I mean, if there's any changes that you're looking to make to the contract, those can be discussed. I need to send a copy of the contract to DESI by June 12th, or if there's going to be changes pending, contact them and let them know that it's going to be later than that. But they need to approve it before anybody here signs it.
June 12th, is that what you said?
Have we heard of any complaints to them, about them?
Yes.
Well, except for the no fat, the no butter.
No, this, although I don't see a specific clause in here, I've actually talked to several teachers, and I understand that there is a clause where Chartwell basically says that the schools will be responsible for cleaning up the kitchen areas.
That's in the contract. Yeah.
Right.
Not Chartwell, the schools are responsible for cleanup of the
Well, yeah,
kitchen.
but what I'm saying is, I know that under the old system, that the people that worked, that the school paid to work in the kitchen and food services would generally stay and clean the kitchens themselves. And now I'm thinking, especially at the high school, where we only have, again, as I understand it, one person doing janitorial services between 2 and 10, with the amount of time that they're spending cleaning the kitchens instead of Chartwell doing it. Again, I've had several teachers say that the janitorial staff isn't able to get to their classrooms to do the kind of cleaning that they're used to, because that time is now spent in the kitchens, and that sometimes teachers will come in and have to clean up and ask the kids to help clean up. And again, given our budget constraints, I mean, this is probably it would be good to have at least 1.5 positions there from 2 to 10 if they're taking on the extra responsibility of the kitchen cleanup. But I don't see us being able to hire a half a person.
Yeah.
Section 6.2.
This is again, Mr. Vine, this is the stuff, we talked about it before. I really hope that particularly when school committee members hear complaints, that they channel them to the right people, because we did have a letter writing. This is not true, obviously. The one person at night, the letter was sent already to the chair. We don't have one person at night, we have 2. It just so happened that one person took
We have 6
days.
people throughout the district, right?
He took one person during the night, from what I understand from Director of Facilities. The person was sick a couple of times, took sick days or some leave, and the one person was alone because we have an absolute ban on any new expenses, so
So
we
are you
didn't
saying we
really
have 6 from 2 to 10 just at the high school?
We have 2 people in the high school. The way he schedules them, Mr. Murphy, the way he schedules his people is that he tries to have in the high school 2 at night. And it just so happens that a few times this year, one of the 2 people was not there for various reasons. And normally, that triggers automatically a sub. They would hire a sub. But given the freezing this particular year of not creating any additional expenses, it didn't happen. But also, I think when I talked to Mr. Murphy, he said that most of the time it's because they didn't notify him on time. Otherwise, he would have tried to get maybe somebody from another school to come in and lend a hand or something.
Okay, that's why I wanted to...
Yeah, but I think the 2 things are really unrelated. I think what people is just they probably think because the maintenance is helping in the kitchen that it necessarily why the classrooms might not be cleaned up a certain at some times. I think it's something that was negotiated with this company long ago. As you know, the administration had really not much to do with the negotiation. It was carried out between the school committee and the companies, and that was something that was very clear right from the beginning that the schools were responsible for the cleanup of the kitchen and also for the maintenance of the equipment because we own the equipment.
Right, I know that. All right, I just wanted to bring it up to you because, you know...
Well, I did because Mrs. Harris got an email to that effect, and then she sent it to me immediately, and we copied immediately Mr. Murphy on it, and he looked into it, and that was his answer. It's no, we do have 2 people.
All right.
We don't have 1.
Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Do we know about their lunch money collection? Are they even? Are they?
For this year, with the new policy, it's going very well. Maryland gave me the figure only a few days ago, and it was less than $100 in deficit. It was doing quite well.
Much better than the last 13,000 that we had hanging out there.
Exactly.
I know it is very rough on the kids and the parents, but if it's working and they're still getting fed.
It's changed, and the other thing too is, I mean, their goal is to run an operation. I mean, let's face it, the school is in the business of educating children. Chartwells is in the business of feeding them, and that's where their expertise lies. Their goal is to come in at a revenue-neutral service. Last year, as I understand it, food services was $67,000 in debt. So, you know, you have to take that into consideration when you hear, you got to take the good and the bad when you hear anything related to food service.
Unrelated to this contract, but since we're talking about Chartwells and the process, something maybe we could look into, and maybe I'm only hearing from a couple people, so maybe this isn't as widespread as I think. It seems like there's still an issue where, you know, a child will come in, and for whatever reason, they don't have a balance in their account. It could be that they didn't communicate with their parents. It could be they're buying extra lunches. It could be whatever the reason. I'm wondering if there's a way maybe where we can try to attack that scenario more at the beginning of the lunch line rather than after they have their food in their hand and it's taken from them and they're getting the replacement meal. If there's a way to, you know, filter that out at the beginning of the process. So like, sorry, kiddo, today you need to do this instead of.
We actually had a meeting to talking with Chartwells because we hear these complaints, and the last thing you want to do is take a meal from a kid's hands. And I wasn't happy with that before them. If you recall, we used to do that ourselves, and I'm not happy when anybody else does it, for that matter. We had a meeting with that, and we explained to them, why can't you have a system where you screen, you know the kids? I mean, why don't you look at the kids before they enter the line and have them go to the right line where they get the alternative sandwich, or at least they don't get embarrassed. And interestingly enough, they showed me that there was they're not allowed to charge before the line. That would not be something that they'll be violating the law. I said, well, forget about charging, forget about going. Why don't you just? They don't know all the kids sometimes, whatever. So we're trying to work with our principals to help out. I talked to the principals and say, maybe we can lend a hand in having, because our teachers know all the kids. Maybe if they will give you the list of whoever is in the red ahead of time, then the teachers can very discreetly talk to the students and not have, whoever teacher is on duty for that. We're going to try that model too. But I also know what the principals do. If they're all good at this, all the principals would tell them, look, if you don't have any money, because some of the kids is really accidental, they forgot the money or whatever, or they have no clue that they're in the red anyway. So please go to the principals, and most of the time the principals will bail them out anyway. When they know this is not a chronic problem, that this is just a kid accidental, they just give them the money and say, you know, just tell mom and dad about it later on. So they're trying to do the best, and I think they've done a fairly good job, the principals, on this. When you look at what we had before and is unpaid and what they have now, and my first year I was here, I was horrified by the number of parents who would contact my office angry because they took away the meal from their children. And this year, I think I've heard it maybe 3 times in the whole year since they were here. So have we eliminated the problem? No, but I don't think any district in Massachusetts has eliminated the problem completely. But I think they did a great deal of progress, and that's mostly because of the principals, really the work of the principals. They walk the halls, they're there, they look at the kids, they know, they bail out the kids when it's accidental, so they do the best they can. Every now and then there's that one case that they missed because they weren't aware of it or didn't see it.
Well, the child lost the check on the school bus. I've had that.
Or you find it 2 weeks later in the backpack. You were supposed to turn this in.
Yeah.
The dog ate my check.
There's always circumstances, but as long as you've had the meeting, you've discussed it with the administrators.
Thank you.
But it's good to see that they're not in the red. Yeah.
So the new policies worked very well in terms of keeping it current.
Now, I know we asked them in the spring for a list of any equipment that would need repairing or upgrades. Has any of that come through?
I understand there is a list. I think it's a big list. At this point, we're looking to visit it in FY16 because there aren't really funds to attack what isn't broken to the point that it needs to get us through the school year.
How much of that list is need and how much of that is wish?
Well, we haven't actually sat down to go through the list yet, so we have to adjudicate that. Right now, they're compiling the list.
They're putting together their wish list right now.
Yeah.
The pizzelle makers probably want, not need.
So take away from this one, if you can please, given the June 12th deadline, if you can please go in detail over this one, share it, whatever, get feedback back to us if you see anything that you absolutely would like to see change or whatever, so we can get a chance to talk it over with Chartwell, because on June 12th we would like to send it down to the state for approval. If we see that we're not going to make it to June 12th, we need to notify them and tell them that we're going to be late.
Maybe we can slip in a quick vote on Monday.
Yeah.
Well, you actually don't have to vote until this comes back from the state for the contract. I'm
Okay,
just
but
saying
this
if you
has to
see
just go to the state.
yeah, if you agree that, or if you see that something really would like you see change or something, give us a chance to talk it over with Chartwell as well.
I think we should probably put it on the agenda to talk about on the 8th, so we're not talking, the 3 of us, without an open meeting,
Yeah.
please.
That would be good.
So if we could do that, so if any of us have any recommendations, we can discuss it quickly. And
Okay. I'm getting with Linda in the morning, so I will put that on the list. Does anybody have any questions further for right now?
At the moment.
No. Okay. Move on to the Title I.
Yes, I'm going to ask Mrs. Miller to come up and talk to us a little bit about the program review, the Title I program review we've had.
I put within your packet the Title I materials and the letter that I received. So I wanted to bring you some good news and some upbeat news. First, I wanted to reflect. As you know, June 30th is my last day of employment within the Winchendon Public Schools. And so reflecting over the last 16 years, there are several projects and programs that have been brought to the district as a result of competitive grant writing. One is the 21st Century After School Program, which has brought over close to $2 million in competitive grant funding for 11 years of after-school programming at Toytown Elementary School and 3 years of programming at the Memorial School. The Competitive Massachusetts Mathematics and Science Initiative at the high school, which has increased the number of AP programs and students scoring 3 or higher on AP exams. And then more recently, the Massachusetts Tiered System of Support Grant around implementation science and professional development opportunities for educators. Winchendon was one of 6 districts within the state to receive this competitive grant among the numerous grants over the years. Lastly, I have directed the Title I allocation program and have addressed, with the support of the principals, the 24 required elements of the coordinated program review, which was attached to your packet. The Title I coordinated program review occurs every 6 years in conjunction with a special education review. The Title I review includes compliance with physical procedures for Title I programming, parent and guardian communications, Title I program design and evaluation, data collection and management, and opportunity and equal educational access. Documents were collected for the district and for each school and submitted to the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education last November. As with any Department of Education review or audit that we've had over the years, historically there have been findings for which we must develop an action plan to address the findings. I am happy to report that the Winchendon Public Schools has received a formal letter from the Department of Education stating there are no findings for the Title I coordinated program review and there's no further action needed. This is unprecedented for the Winchendon Public Schools. From the early years when I stood with the superintendent, when the district was found underperforming, and until this most recent review, I've not seen any review or audit with no findings. It is my hope that these competitive grant-funded programs will continue to be pursued, and it has been a pleasure to serve the staff and students of the town of Winchendon.
Thank you very much. You've done wonderful work. We have no minutes for this meeting, and questions and comments by members.
Can I ask, I'm sorry, did you want to go first?
No.
Just a couple of questions, and again, I'm just talking minor figures here when compared to the overall budget, but I guess first of all, I'm just curious as to whether when ordering, people in the district are encouraged to order from as local a vendor as they possibly can. The reason I ask that is going through the warrant the other day, I just came across an order for some parchment tracing paper. The cost of it was $30.50, which is not much. But then the shipping and handling from Des Moines was $67.81, so we ended up paying $98 for a $30 order, basically. And I mean, it's hard for me to believe that Staples or some local art supply stores wouldn't carry the same product, and we wouldn't have to pay, 3 times what they're looking for from Oriental Trading out in Des Moines. I just wondered if there's, again, if there's any kind of a policy, or if people are encouraged to look around rather than, we've ordered from there before, so I'm going to order there again. getting comfortable with just doing the same thing over and over again as opposed to taking the time to look for the best deal. And I only ask that, I don't mean to be nitpicking, but given the situation that we're in, if we can save a buck here and there, it all adds up.
From what I know is all purchases that we do, most of the times they're driven by a bidding contract, or a lot of the purchases we do are on a state contract. We are aware that in many times state contracts are much higher, and in some cases particularly when it's a large purchase like technology, we do our own bidding because we're not happy with state contract prices. And in some cases where it's a small purchase, they don't go through the process necessarily because the process will probably take longer. I'm not aware of I'll be lying to you if I tell you that I'm aware of every single, $20 purchase in there. If I were to do that, then I'll never be able to do my job. If I were to look at every single one of them. But do we have a policy, which you're asking directly, to encourage local purchasing?
Either, not necessarily a written policy, but even just verbally encouraging people to try to shop locally, basically.
I don't think we have any policy like that, but I know that many people feel that way. I, for one, when I try to do everything, I try to go local first before I do anything. I know maintenance does that a lot. They always go to local first. I can't tell you whether everybody does that, to be honest. It's obviously there are some people who don't do that.
Okay.
I don't know. And also sometimes it's like almost like a convenience issue too. If you have a state bidding contract list, it's higher, whatever, but it's in the state contract. They have a system. They're on an account. They deal with the town as a vendor, so they're approved vendor and so forth. And sometimes our teachers or whoever does the purchase may not necessarily go to Staples and purchase and then get reimbursed. So.
And just one other quick question, again, going through the warrant. This isn't so much about the money, but there was a bill from, I believe it was National Grid, relative to reactivating an alarm at the high school. And I'm just wondering how long the alarm was down, and what caused it to be either deactivated, or if there was a problem with the system itself, because again, it was to reactivate the alarm. And I'm just wondering if this, I guess also how long the school was out the alarm, if there was any, problem or risk to anybody that resulting from the.
Again, I wish you had asked me when I'm in the office with Mr. Murphy, and I'll be able to get you the answer quickly.
Okay.
Right now, I will get you the answer if you give us the dates of what you're talking about. The only thing that I'm aware of was not an alarm that had gone off. Was the heating system and the HVAC system is automated, and it had failed, and they had to get somebody. I'm not really aware of an alarm.
Okay, this was on the warrant that we went through yesterday.
Yeah, so next time, I'm leaving, but advise when you're working with the superintendent, you don't wait out on your questions the whole week until you get to the school committee. Obviously, you're coming in there, and that's the purpose of you coming in there, is to observe it and examine the warrant. And we've had school committee members in the past, as they're examining the warrant, they get a question, they'll ask immediately and say, oh, what is this? Can you please explain it to me? And then if we don't know the answer immediately, we'll get the right person, whether it's maintenance or technology, or sometimes we call a principal and say, what is that? But they get the answer on the spot. I think it's better,
Yeah, you had left for a meeting yesterday, so I wasn't able to.
But everybody can help. I mean, obviously, that's primarily the function of the business office, not, they're really the people the first people I would ask would be the business office, and then just say, can you please have somebody explain this to me? And it happens all the time. When school committee members come in, the three of them who come and sign, they'll just ask those questions. There's nothing wrong. That's your job, to ask the
I've left
questions before
notes.
you sign.
I think in this instance, I can shed a little bit of light. And I'm not sure if there was actually any kind of lapse. It was a freezer alarm, if I'm remembering
Oh, that's
correctly.
okay.
And what had happened was, apparently, we got a bill for the alarm, paid it, and for some reason, I guess, the bill had a past due balance from some prior time that the alarm company, because you only get billed occasionally, and when we paid it, it paid the bill, but apparently it took care of this past due balance that wasn't even on the invoice that we didn't even know about. So then we found out that it was canceled. We asked why. We said we paid the bill, and we were told, oh, yes, you paid the bill on this past due balance. The past due balance that isn't on this invoice, so we paid the invoice, and you're saying you applied it to some other money we don't know about. So we're looking into why we had a past due balance, but it's since been reinstated, and I believe that's what caused the problem with the
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the lack of whatever alarm it wasn't something that was going to, potentially put people at risk, that's all.
Yeah, no, I don't believe there was any, it was an alarm to say when the freezer hit a warm temperature.
I got you.
Whenever, if and when we ever have anything big like that, you'd be getting a call from me. We always notify the school committee if there is something, whatever it is, whether it's a bus having an accident or we had a failure of the system in Toy Town, and it was freezing, so we immediately called the school committee because we don't want them to get surprised when they get the phone call from the parents. So we notified the whole school committee about it. Another time we had a failure of the electrical as well in Toy Town, and it triggered the fire alarm because of the smoke, but there was no fire. We also notified the school committee for that.
I guess, just, again, being new on the school committee and still getting used to some of the procedures, I feel it's better for me to ask the questions than to let them go by.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think what I encourage you to do is, like, the purpose of why the state has put that requirement for the school committee to sign the warrant is exactly for what you're pointing out. So the school committee can ask questions when they're there and demand an answer. Sometimes you may want to see the paperwork that we don't necessarily put all through the bill. You might want to see details. No, not a problem at all. You can ask anything you want. That's why we have a desk, and we even serve coffee if you'd like.
We do.
But don't look for
We have to
a
put money in the club.
Yeah. All right,
Don't look for a
thanks to
pen.
both of you for answering those questions.
Somewhat related, I'm kind of putting Mark on the spot, so if you want to shift this to the next meeting, that's okay. I sent you an email late in the game. A citizen was asking about our tech bid, possibly it's called, where we buy paper and toner and stuff like that. Could you possibly talk a little bit about that process?
Yes. So apparently this process has gone on. It's not really been in the forefront in the business office because with obviously the hiring, with the freeze on spending, we haven't been doing a lot of spending. But I know it kind of came to light for me when Linda Daigle, the assistant town manager, had asked about the tech bid. And I'm like, well, what tech bid? So it's a bid that has gone on and apparently expires in April, which is odd for a bid. So I took some of the items from last year's bid, and I told her I would look into seeing what the costs were. Because generally we find for items like that, any kind of supplies, usually the state contract is the quickest, easiest way to get it because some of the vendors on there, I won't mention by name, will match any price that you have. So I was going to look into that versus this tech bid. But yeah, this tech bid was kind of an obscure thing that really wasn't on our radar until it reached the point of, I guess, the bid that had expired. So further looking to see in terms of what would happen in terms of a cost for some of the normal channels the school would purchase versus this tech bid. And if we find that the tech bid is lower, we'll go to some of the vendors and see what they can do for a price. But generally, we find that going to some of the sources for products on the state bid list is the easiest and most competitive way to get the products because it's already been vetted by the state.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
I do have something on other.
You have
Did
another?
you get there?
Okay. Sure, I
depends.
think
Is it
I'm pretty
good
much
news?
covered for
No,
this
it's-
week. So you can go with the other.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you. If you recall, last year, your predecessors had worked out some deal with the particularly all the union groups, that if you, I'm sure you're all aware that in the summer, that the schedule for most of the unions is half day on Friday. It's all of them, it's negotiated in their contract. This is something that precedes me. Last year, the school committee worked out with them an agreement to allow them to take the 4 hours of that half day on Friday and spread them over Monday through Thursday, 1 hour extra every, and then not work on Friday, just like the town does. They close on Friday. That's something for you to, they asked me to please remind you, because the summer is coming up, and then it's for you to decide whether you want to do that or not.
Did you find that there were any problems with that last year? Did anything come up?
Really didn't have any problems, because that I know is the two things that we mostly do is with schools, the schools are closed, or with the town, and the town is closed on Friday, so it didn't really disturb much. I think particularly the maintenance liked it because they had longer hours in one day to do what they want to do, if they have to dismantle things and put things back together and so forth. But I know that the administrators, even though officially they weren't working, there were a lot of times they were there. They were even there on Saturday or Sunday to accommodate their work. They had something to do, so they just come anyway and do their work, because they don't work per hour.
Maintenance, admin, what other groups?
Maintenance, all of them, secretaries. We don't have teachers in the summer, so this does not apply to teachers. So the number of hours is the same. They have to work the same number of hours. They're just asking whether we're going to do that or not, so they, particularly in scheduling their crews, they want to make sure one way or another they can do it.
Well, they held their contracts at 0 for us in the
They did.
town, so
They did.
as long as it didn't run into any problems last year, I wouldn't see any reason why we have to change.
I didn't see any problem personally, and if you have heard any complaints, please tell us.
I haven't heard anything. We're
Can
good
we
with
have
it.
then, if you don't mind, can I push you further then to have a motion, and so I can convey that to them?
I make a motion for the appropriate unions? Is it for the
It's
unions?
really all at this point, because if nobody works, then the non-union are very few.
Okay.
They
To be
do
able
the
to
same
spread
thing.
their 4 Friday hours throughout Monday through Thursday so they can
Yes.
take Friday off.
I'll second that.
All those in
That
favor?
goes on only for July and August, that's all.
Only for July.
Well, before school starts. When school starts, they resume,
Yeah, they have to be there on Friday.
not the,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so they work 4 days. All right. Anything else?
that's
No?
it.
No? Can we motion to
I'll make a
adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We adjourn at 8:25.